This is Film Class Week 7, Part 5. Um, Dorothy meets the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion, and they are not great. They're pretty good. They help a little. They're nice. They help. Tin Man's actually not that nice, but they're nice and they do things to kind of help around a little bit. But it's worth pointing out that Dorothy is the powerhouse in the film. She's the one who is sort of doing the work, and the witches are powerful. And these three guys are not fantastic. Couple of things to say about them. There's also one of my favorite lines in the movie is when Dorothy turns to her dog and she hears the Scarecrow. The Scarecrow says something, and she doesn't think the Scarecrow's alive. And she says to her dog, "Scarecrows don't talk." She says to her dog. It's great. It's a cute line. But they are all. The Tin Man, by the way, I want to say this about the Tin Man. His arc is a little hard to see. The Scarecrow is dumb and wants brains, and the Lion is cowardly and wants courage. The Scarecrow wants a heart. For a long time, I thought this meant like he was incapable of love, but he seems to have feelings. What they mean by doesn't have a heart is he's heartless. He's mean. Of course, the guy in the real world that he's right, because the Scarecrow and the Lion and the Tin Man are all the three guys from Dorothy's farm, who, by the way, back on the farm were cowardly and mean and dumb, and now they've been translated into this other world. They've been translated into this other world. The Tin Man's issue is that he's mean. He likes, you'll see it, but like when the Scarecrow confronts the Lion, the Tin Man's like, "Hey, why don't you fight him?" Like, he wants bad things to happen. On the farm, the guy who's the Tin Man laughs when the guy who's the Cowardly Lion falls into the pig pen. He thinks it's funny. He wants to make fun of the guy. So the Tin Man's a little bit mean. And he wants a heart. And he says if he had a heart, he'd be friends with the sparrows and the boy who shot the arrows, which is a really interesting line because it means he's going to be, he wants to have a heart so he can sympathize with both victims and victimizers. Which is be friends with the sparrows and the boy who shoots the arrows. The boy shooting the arrows at the sparrows. He wants to be friends with a kid with a bow and arrow who hurts things, but also friends with the little sparrows. He wants to be friends with everybody, victim or victimizer. The other thing I want to toss out here that I forgot to say earlier is all these callbacks to Act 1. Things set up in Act 1 show up in Act 2 in strange ways. It's very similar. The relationship between Act 1 and Act 2 and 3 is very similar to the relationship between the day you might have had and the dream you had that night. I'm sure you've had a really weird dream where all kinds of crazy shit happens, but if you think about it, you can be like, "Oh, that's why I was dreaming about that, because I bumped into my friend from high school, and that's why he was in my dream, because I had seen him earlier that day, even though in the dream he was a crazy person, or a witch or whatever." So the point is that it's like the things in your day-to-day life get translated into the movie. Well, in this movie, the things from Dorothy's farm life get translated into Oz in different ways. The Lion, I think, is the most interesting of the three because he fits into the larger pattern of the movie. The crucial thing about the Lion is that he at first appears to be super masculine. He wants to fight. He wants to scare people. He's dangerous, but he's just faking it. He's faking masculinity. This is interesting in a movie where all the creatures of power are women. I'm going to say something crazy, and you're just going to go with me. Remember Frank from Blue Velvet? When he's confronting Kyle MacLachlan in Meadow Lane, and he says, "Feel my muscles. You know, a love letter for me is a bullet from a fucking gun." That he's sort of acts masculine, in the sense that he like rapes women. Is that a masculine trait? I mean, toxic masculinity for sure. But that he's only pretending because he can't really do it. In the same way, there's an interesting paper to be written comparing Frank Booth from Blue Velvet to the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz. If you want to write that paper, fucking do it. Although your papers should probably be about movies we didn't go over in class. But there's an interesting paper there about faking masculinity. And the Cowardly Lion is faking masculinity on some level. He pretends to be manly, but he's actually a coward and useless. Dorothy stands up to him. He scares the two men. The Scarecrow and the Tin Man. The Tin Man, by the way, who has an axe and whose body is made of metal. They're terrified. And Dorothy has no problem swatting a lion on the nose. She's great. She's tough. She's tougher than the guy who's made of armor carrying an axe. Good for her. We like Dorothy. Dorothy's great. And Judy Garland is a fucking national treasure, and she's the goddamn best. What's interesting about Act 2 of the film is that all the characters rely on the solution to all their problems is a very powerful man. Of course, if you've seen the movie, you know that he turns out not to be so powerful. But I am the great and powerful Oz. A man will solve their problems. And so they go on a journey to find the man who will solve their problems. This is a world where the women are the ones with all the power, but they're going to go to a man to solve their problems. It's not going to fucking work. And it's interesting that the Cowardly Lion noticed the connection between the Cowardly Lion and the Wizard. They're very similar characters. They act big, scary, dangerous, but they are in reality nerdy, cowardly people, nervous, cowardly, and kind of useless. I mean, that they help a little. I'm exaggerating, but in an action movie, everybody gets a chance to do a big thing, and there's some of that in the Wizard of Oz, but it's really the women who have all the power. Okay, cool. Notice that the Wicked Witch watches them just like we watch them. Notice the crystal ball that the old man had in Act 1 shows up as the witch's crystal ball in Act 2. Notice that when the wizard when the magician guy in Act 1 looks into the crystal ball, we don't see anything weird happening because he's faking it. It doesn't do anything. It's just a ball. But when the witch does it, we actually get to see the things that she sees. She watches the characters in a ball just like we watch them on the screen. Also, this is not an intelligent thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. The jackets on the monkeys are fucking amazing. I love the fact the monkeys have these crazy design jackets. They're fantastic. It's a great piece of character design, or costume design. But this idea that there's also a split second when Dorothy's hanging out with the Scarecrow and the Lion and the Tin Man, and she says, "I feel like I've known you all my life, but I couldn't have. I just met you." It's a nice moment because she can feel a connection between Act 1 and Act 2, right? We know this. We're the ones who know that these are the people who populated her earlier life, but she doesn't know that. She's figuring it out. But it provides an anchor. You're going to see this in some upcoming movies where you'll also be thrown. There's other movies that are like The Wizard of Oz. They're very rare, where a movie will tell a story and then start over and tell the same story. But you'll see it as we go. I don't want to spoil anything for you. Okay. I mentioned that Dorothy's a little bit like Homer's Odyssey and Space Odyssey, where they go far away from home and come back and they go on these crazy adventures. One of the very famous things that happens in Homer's Odyssey is that one of the adventures he goes on is he goes to the land of the Lotus Eaters, and they get kind of drugged out on poppies. That's the same thing that happens in The Wizard of Oz, where they get kind of drugged out on the on the plants, and then Gilda saves them. Glinda. I keep saying Gilda. Gilda's a movie we're going to watch soon. Glinda saves them from the poppies because this is the thing. They can't save themselves, they think. And so they're traveling for a wizard, a man, to save them. Along the way, they get in a lot of trouble. They're almost destroyed when they fall into the poppy flowers and they go to sleep right before they get to their where they're going. But at the same time, a woman, it's Glinda the Good Witch who comes and saves them. Because while the Wizard of Oz appears to be powerful and is not, Glinda actually is. Again, why? Because Dorothy's mom is the powerful, or Dorothy's Auntie M is the powerful one in the family. It's worth saying something now that I've mentioned Auntie M. I should probably also say the family was poor. One of the reasons why Miss Gulch getting mad about the dog was so dangerous is because if they get in trouble, they could lose the farm. They don't have a lot of money. They're really worried about losing a couple of chickens. That's they're kind-hearted people, but that's also how they make their money. And so they're poor. They're quite poor. And so it's interesting that in the dream world, it's all about emeralds and rubies, right? Ruby slippers and Emerald City, and the Yellow Brick Road, which is sort of like gold. But the idea of a world where it's not just jewels, but shoes made of jewels, or a whole city made of jewels, is the fulfillment of the poverty. It connects back to the poverty that Dorothy grew up with. The Wizard of Oz, everything in Oz is transformed. It takes what she lived and transforms it. Sometimes by taking people and keeping them internally the same, but externally different, like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, the Wizard. Sometimes it's like symbolic. It feels like Glinda is a kind of younger, more beautiful Auntie M. But sometimes it's also reversals. where like the poverty in the beginning, there's so much wealth, right? They get to go to a spa. When they get to Oz, they do like a spa day where they all get to have a nice time and they get taken care of like rich people would. They're going to do your hair and give you a massage and fix up your clothes. By the way, they put a bow in they curl. They give the Cowardly Lion a perm and put a bow in his hair. Again, these are things that are traditionally associated with women. So he is more feminine. He pretends to be masculine, but he is more feminine, and they help him sort of carry that out, which is kind of lovely. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video.